Hi everybody, so what I'm going to do here today is attempt to make a custom GoPro chin mount for my Shoei RF-1200 helmet. So the plan is I'm going to use an epoxy-based product to do a custom chin mount on my helmet right here. So what I'm going to need is an epoxy-based product, and I've gone ahead and I've actually picked this one, which is a PC Marine epoxy-based product. So it gives me a work time of 15 minutes and it does cure and dry quite quickly. It's sandable, you can Dremel it down, it's paintable, and it's supposed to adhere to pretty much everything. It's also waterproof and it has really good temperature fluctuations, so it should be okay if I'm using this in colder or warmer riding conditions as well. Now the other thing that you will need, or that I'm going to be needing to do this, is a curved mount from your GoPro. Usually this will come with your camera or with some of the mounting kits. You can also purchase them separately. You can see here with these little mounts, what happens is with this particular helmet, when it's on here, it actually leaves a really big space, so it just does not fit on here really well. So I've seen a couple of other videos and a couple of websites where people have done a custom mount using like epoxy products and whatnot on their Shoei RF-1200, so I'm going to give that a go and see how it works out. So what I'm going to do here is, first off, the goal is to get the epoxy mount to fill in those spaces. So what we're going to do is, I actually do have one of these curved mounts already in progress. So I've peeled away the back 3M sticky coating. So here we go. So that's the back of the 3M sticky that has been peeled away from the curved mount. So this is what you're left with. Remember, this is what it would look like at first with the 3M right on there. So I just pretty much worked off the corner of it and peeled it off. So this is the curved mount without the 3M sticky on it. So I've taken it right off. Now what does happen though is the back of the mount where the 3M has come off is really quite shiny and smooth. So in order to get better adhesion for the epoxy, this should be scraped off. You could use a Dremel tool with some coarse sandpaper and medium grit sandpaper, or you could just use a piece of medium grit sandpaper, which is what some people have done with success. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to use a medium grit sandpaper, and I'm going to sand this down so that the surface is roughened before I move ahead with any of my other steps. So here I just have a medium grit sandpaper. I've gone ahead and I've sanded down the back of the mount here, making sure there's no shiny plastic bits and pieces left. I've also done up around the edges a little bit because the epoxy mount is going to come up a little bit to adhere to that as well, just to give it a little bit more of a secure base. So I'm actually cleaning off the back of this now with an alcohol-based solution, and I'm just using a piece of gauze. We're trying to get all the remnants of the plastic off from the sanding so that we have a really nice, clean, dry surface for the epoxy to mount to. The next step that you're going to need to do is you want to be able to have the epoxy going onto your helmet, but because I don't want it to be a permanent mount directly onto my helmet, I'm going to, when it's completed, attach a 3M sticker on the back of the new mold that I've made with the epoxy. So to be able to make the mold, what you want to do is place some tape on your helmet, and I'm using a frog tape. There's 3M tape. You want to use a good quality masking tape, and I'm going to put the tape all along the front of my helmet, tape that on so that the epoxy mold can go on top of the tape, and then once it's cured, I'll be able to take the tape off and then remove that from the mold. Okay, so now I've gone ahead, I've put my tape all on the front of the chin. What I also did when I was putting the tape on there is I was just making sure that I was going along it. Either you could use like a plastic credit card or a plastic card of sorts, and you want to smooth out all of those nasty little kind of bubbles or lines that are really poking out of there. So here's the tube of epoxy that has come out, and you can cut off how much you need or just twist off what you need, and then you're going to work it together so that the two can start to really mix well. On the instructions here, it says to knead the putty until a uniform color is achieved and to remove the excess before the hardening begins. Checking on my helmet, no licking though. So I've got a nice chunk of putty here now that's pretty mixed. The color is quite uniform. I'm grabbing the mount that I sanded down. I'm going to put a nice big chunky block of it right there. And I'm going to go ahead and place it about where I want it to be. I'm not too worried about using my vent because I never use my vent here. Okay, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to push down on where I want it to be. And you really got to push on here pretty darn good until it kind of hits that bump here, I think. So I do have a nice glob of it looking about like this now. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to work a knife around the side and get rid of the excess putty now. And all I'm doing here is I'm just kind of pressing the knife all along the edges just to work it right off from the sides, like so. And then I will just peel that right off. You can see I've kind of gone up, I've lifted up a little bit more against the sides here, and it is going to dry white, but like I said, this putty is paintable, so if I want to clean the look up a little bit, I can always paint it when it's done. So now that I've got it pretty much I think where I want it, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to hold some pressure on here for at least 60 seconds. So there we have it. What I've done is, you can see it looks pretty messy, but this can be sanded once it's dry and it can be painted. So what I've done is I've lifted up the epoxy towards the mount so that it just kind of like seats in there a little bit better. So it does look a little bit messy and a little bit sloppy, but I'm going to clean that all up after it's all dry and after I've taken it off. So I'm actually going to let this cure for a good 24 hours before I even go ahead and try to take the tape off the helmet. And by then this should all be nice and dry, and then we're going to go ahead and sand it and then paint it, and our mount should be ready to be mounted on then with some 3M tape. The mold has cured for 24 hours, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to peel away all the green tape here. So I actually pried a knife just under the corners here to be able to just kind of get that tape to lift off from the helmet. So now I'm just peeling the tape away, but as the tape comes off, there is actually not a lot of residue on the back of the mold here, so that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. So what I'm going to do now is, you can see where it just needs to be sanded down a little bit. It's pretty rough along the edges. I'm going to sand some of this tape off, but this mold is really hard. It is set on this mount really, really well, and I'm just hoping that this is going to fit on okay. So this is the mold right here. So now this is the completed and dried mold. I haven't sanded it down yet or anything, but I just wanted to check what the fit was like. And that is a pretty snazzy fit. So I did sand this down a little bit more. It could be tidied up, so those of you that want to do a little bit more sanding, you can use a finer grit, which is probably what I'm going to go do. And then I'm going to paint this black all along the edges, just so that when it's on the helmet, you're not going to see that it's not part of the mount. It will look like just one big happy piece. And then I'm going to clean this off with some alcohol swabs. And after that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do my 3M tape on here, mounted on the helmet, and see how it works out. Alright, so here it is, all done. It's painted, it's ready to go. So I did not paint the back side of it though, and the rest of it is pretty cured. So I cut an extra piece of 3M right here that I'm going to mount on the back of this, and then I'm going to clamp it for probably about 24 hours. There we have it. I put the clamp right over top of the whole mold right here to hold it for about 24 hours, and we'll see how it goes. It's on there really well. The fit is really excellent. You might be looking at my vent on here and thinking I won't be able to open it, but honestly, where I ride, I am never so hot that I need to open the vent. Remember, it's northern British Columbia, so I don't really need the vent that much, but I did do a bit of an indentation at the top of the bracket so that I can actually open the vent if I wanted to, like so. So it can open, it will work, and then I just have to do it on both sides to be able to close it though, instead of the tab at the very bottom. For me, that's fine because I rarely am going to use the vent on this helmet. I really like the fit. I like how this is going to sit up a little bit higher than for my camera, and I probably only need to get one little adapter piece to lift up the camera a little bit more so that the angle of view is a little bit higher rather than sitting lower on the helmet. The chin mount that I did has turned out really well actually. I've ridden now probably for over a week, but the mount is solid. It's not going anywhere. It hasn't started to come apart at all where the 3M tape is holding it onto the chin mount. It has ended up working really well. So this is my GoPro Hero5 black setup on my Shoei RF-1200 helmet. And of course, there's lots of different options for you out there. This was just the chin mount setup that I went with. So I definitely hope that that helped some of you out. Don't be afraid, throw some comments in there. Again, I'm not saying this is the best setup. I'm saying it's my setup. So if you want to go ahead and try to use this one, that's great. If you don't, that's great too. This is what I'm using, and for now, it works for me. All right, have a great day. Leave me a comment, and if this video was helpful, of course, throw a like on there and share.